What makes a great finale? Is it the heart-pounding action, the emotional payoff, or the unforgettable moments that leave us breathless? Today we are putting two cinematic giants head-to-head. Avengers Endgame, the epic culmination of over a decade of Marvel storytelling, and The Dark Knight Rises, the haunting conclusion to Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. So, let us explore these iconic finales and the moments that defined it to see which finale truly nailed it. The Avengers Endgame is a love letter to all its fans who followed the Marvel Cinematic Universe from day one. It wraps up over a decade of storytelling in a thoroughly entertaining finale. But arguably the biggest achievement of the movie has to be bringing in nostalgia and emotions and tying up the storylines of many of its favorite characters. Despite juggling countless storylines, it gives nearly every major character a moment to shine. The two major characters that it focused on were Captain America and Tony Stark, and may I say that both of their characters got poetic justice? Tony, considered somewhat a selfish and egotistical character, became truly selfless, sacrificing himself to save the universe by stealing the Infinity Stones from Thanos for the final snap, whereas Steve, the ever-selfless hero, finally chooses himself, staying back in time to live with his love, Peggy. The movie was packed with some of the best moments that were a guaranteed ingredient to win the hearts of fans with a bittersweet ending. You really can't tell me that you didn't shed a tear or two at Tony's last scene. Not to forget the fight. The last act was simply an epic performance where the Avengers finally assembled in numbers never seen before on the big screen. To witness this, with some of the MCU's greatest heroes coming together, was legendary for the fans. And the Thanos versus the Big Three scene was one of my absolute favorites. All in all, the finale was a brilliant end to the Infinity Saga, and it surely was worth a watch. But did it live up to the hype? Well, the answer is a little more complex than a simple yes or no. The movie itself was a cinema hit, action-packed with a reunion of all the MCU Universe MVPs, but the ending failed at quite a few places. As much as Endgame soars, it stumbles too. One of the biggest loopholes of the movie is the time-traveling heist. While fun and full of nostalgia, the rules of time travel are at best murky and at the worst, flatly nonsensical. It just feels like an excuse for fan service instead of any kind of cohesive plot point. Hulk's time travel logic in the movie is confusing. He claims that traveling to the past makes it your new future, while your present becomes the past, which you can't change, but that logic is flawed. Your new future might not apply to everyone else. Changing the past should affect others' futures, as the Ancient One suggests when she talks about alternate realities. Plus, if altering the past didn't change the future, how did past Thanos come to the future? This idea has been played with in other movies, like in Harry Potter when he tries to free Buckbeak, and that is a good example of using the rules of time travel in a movie, not for the convenience of the plot, but to add to the storyline. And if we talk about the fight, the final climax, sure, it's massive and visually stunning, but it fails in the department of how an epic battle should be set up. I would even go to the extent of saying that the build-up was greater than the fight itself, and before you all come after me for saying this, let me explain why. In the final face-off, thousands of characters are fighting in what feels like a chaotic brawl. There's no strategy, no personal storytelling within the fight. It's like the filmmakers threw action figures into a sandbox without considering the stakes or dynamics. Each character has their unique powers that had been set up in the previous movies, but the battle failed to use those. You can easily replace any character in the battle with another and it wouldn't make a difference, and that is my biggest problem with the fight scene. Maybe you're thinking that the movie wasn't just about the fight scene, and you're right. While it didn't necessarily need to be an epic fight, if you strip away the context and build-up from the earlier films, what remains is a below-average fight scene for what was perhaps the most anticipated finale in cinema history. To create a compelling fight scene, you must have a story behind it. This fight felt like something a child might throw together with their toys. Another problem with the final battle was that there was pretty much no dynamic change in the entire fight sequence. There was no yang to the yin. The Avengers seemed to have the upper hand throughout the fight, which was not interesting to see. Perhaps the only instance where we saw a glimpse of the dynamic shift was the destruction of the ship, but that was about it. Smaller victories like the Scarlet Witch overpowering Thanos or Ant-Man defeating his lieutenants did not hold any emotional weight and did not build a sense of one unified epic battle. It would have been great to see all of the heroes unite to kill Thanos. Moreover, moments that should have provided hope, like the women uniting to fight Thanos' army, were undermined by a lack of tension. The villains offered no meaningful counterattack, making the heroes' victory feel too easy, almost boring. Ultimately, Endgame feels like a collection of awesome moments tied together by a thin plot. Wouldn't it be awesome if Captain America wielded Mjolnir? Wouldn't it be cool if Loki escaped with the Tesseract? Wouldn't it be great to have a girl power scene with all the women supporting Captain Marvel? These moments stand out, but they don't form a cohesive story. Now, let's talk about The Dark Knight Rises. Christopher Nolan delivers a finale that's deeply personal, centered on Bruce Wayne's journey. At its core, the movie is about sacrifice. Bruce saves Gotham by seemingly sacrificing his life, giving the city hope, and finally liberating himself from the curse that was Batman. The ending is bittersweet, with Alfred seeing Bruce alive and well with Selina Kyle, closing on Bruce's character while at the same time suggesting the weight of the mantle will pass to John Blake. Bruce's arc is powerful. After being physically and emotionally broken by Bane, he learns to embrace his fear and reclaim his strength. His triumphant climb out of the pit symbolizes his rebirth, a moment of sheer cinematic brilliance. The great twist at the end is when we find out Bruce Wayne is alive. Now, many people were disappointed to find that out, as it would have been a meaningful ending if Bruce Wayne had died at the end. Sad endings can be powerful. They're bold and different, and show that the creators are willing to destroy something deeply personal, a character or concept they've invested so much in. But in my opinion, what we got from Nolan was far greater than that. Batman died, but Bruce Wayne didn't. If Bruce Wayne had actually died in the movie, I'd have left the theater amazed and entertained, but somehow disappointed. Batman was an ideal, a hero who was willing to give everything for justice. Bruce Wayne, on the other hand, had already given everything. Since his childhood, he had been searching for justice. After all that suffering, it would be unfair if his story ended in death. Where's the justice in that? The ending was the perfect finish line. Gotham rose from the ashes, and it no longer needed Batman to save it. Deep down, Bruce wanted that too. A clean slate and a fresh start. He deserved it, and as a viewer, I felt that just this once, I deserved to know he got it. The point of the movie that I think most people missed was that for Bruce Wayne, becoming Batman was a way to escape his pain. But over time, he realized that this decision only brought him more suffering. To truly move forward, he had to let go, not just of the mask, but of the public persona of Bruce Wayne as well. By killing Bruce Wayne in the eyes of the world, he gave himself a chance at a fresh start and the possibility of a happy life. To me, this was the true meaning of The Dark Knight Rises. Batman lives on, as Batman can be anybody. But just like every movie, The Dark Knight Rises fails in certain aspects. Many fans rated it as the weakest of the trilogy. One of the reasons for that is the movie juggles too many themes and characters. From Bane's ideology, Miranda's betrayal, and Catwoman's redemption, the movie sets up many parallel plotlines, all of which dilute the focus of the one central theme of the movie that many had a hard time figuring out. While this consistency was an issue in the movie, there was an even bigger problem. Bruce's victory over Bane feels hollow. You see, the finale has to be about redemption or overcoming something. At the beginning of The Dark Knight Rises, Bruce Wayne gets defeated by Bane. The movie gives two reasons for this. He is too trusting and has become complacent as Batman. Now, ideally, he should have overcome these weaknesses when he faces him again. That's what the character arc is all about. By the end of the movie, Batman defeats Bane by simply throwing a few punches. What did he do differently? Did he overcome his weakness? Not really. Bruce still naively trusts Miranda, who betrays him immediately after the fight, showing that he hasn't learned to be more cautious. Similarly, his arrogance persists as his tactics remain offensive with no new strategies or defensive measures. Perhaps in focusing on Bruce's journey, the creators neglected Batman's character arc. The one thing Bruce does learn in the pit is to accept his fear. This is how he is capable of climbing the wall that even Bane couldn't. This could have been the element for a truly satisfying finale, a well-defined arc where Batman triumphs over what earlier made him lose. The film doesn't develop on this. Instead, Batman's triumph merely seems superficial instead of meaningful growth or change. While both Avengers Endgame and The Dark Knight Rises conclude monumental cinematic arcs, they approach their finales in fundamentally different ways. Where Avengers Endgame focus on collective unity and delivering a grand spectacle for fans, The Dark Knight Rises zeroes in on a deeply personal journey for its central character. While one can argue which did a better job at delivering the ultimate finale, it's clear both movies did a spectacular job. Let's take a closer look at how the franchise crafts an extraordinary finale and which was better. Endgame is truly a grand finale in the sense that it ties in the loose ends of all previous movies and also brings back the characters from the universe as one last goodbye. It brings together over a decade of interconnected storytelling, uniting a diverse cast of characters in a cinematic battle that celebrates the MCU's legacy. Every hero gets screen time to shine, even the minor characters bring their respective storylines. The climax of Avengers Assemble was symbolic, not just of the team coming together, but of the greater MCU fandom coming together for one last shared experience. This cinematic brilliance was less about storytelling and more so about revisiting the decades of movies that the fans have grown to love. Whereas the storyline of The Dark Knight Rises focuses almost exclusively on Bruce Wayne's personal story. The finale is less about saving Gotham and more about Bruce's redemption and closure. While the citizens of Gotham play a role in the story, they mostly remain passive observers, and the movie's emotional weight is carried by Bruce's journey to free himself from the dual burdens of Batman and his traumatic past. The approach of finales for both movies is widely distinct. Both managed to deliver a brilliant cinema masterpiece. A converging theme in both movies was the sacrifice of the heroes. And yes, that is a cliché overused finale theme, but I believe both movies had something unique to offer when it comes to this so-called cliché. In Endgame, Tony Stark's sacrifice is the emotional centerpiece of the film. His character arc comes full circle, from a selfish genius to a selfless savior. Steve Rogers, on the other hand, chooses himself for the first time, staying in the past to live a life of personal fulfillment. These decisions provide closure not only for the characters, but also for the audience, making the finale bittersweet yet satisfying. In The Dark Knight Rises, the sacrifice of Bruce Wayne is rather symbolic than real. He killed Batman and Bruce Wayne in the eyes of Gotham to save himself from his past and not let the city further depend on a masked savior. The climactic battle in Endgame is a visual feast. Thousands of characters converge in a sprawling, chaotic fight that is quite unparalleled in cinematic history. It's undeniably entertaining, but the lack of personal storytelling within the battle greatly diminishes the emotional impact. Powers and arcs built throughout the MCU are wasted, and more often than not, it's just a jumbled mess rather than a coherent fight. Minor victories, like that of Scarlet Witch overpowering Thanos, mean nothing because the battle itself did not dynamically build tension or stakes. In The Dark Knight Rises, the final confrontation between Batman and Bane is personal and intimate, but not without its flaws. The point at which Bruce learns to embrace his fear in the pit doesn't pay off in any meaningful way during his victory over Bane. He defeats Bane through nothing other than brute force rather than strategy or character development. Thematically, the battle also lacks emotional resolution for a trilogy finale and leaves Bruce's arc incomplete. So, though the battles are both portrayed in a completely different manner, in my opinion, both missed the mark given the potential. They sure delivered an exciting spectacle and storyline. Nostalgia and fan service form the foundation of Endgame. It is the greatest strength of the movie, and arguably the greatest weakness. It takes us through a journey of the past by giving fans callback to earlier films while tying up loose ends. This simplicity makes it emotionally effective, but simultaneously limits its thematic depth. The time travel plot is entertaining, that's for sure, but it is riddled with inconsistencies and is mainly used only as an excuse to revisit iconic MCU moments. The emotional payoff often overrides the logic as the movie leans heavily on spectacle and sentimentality. On the other hand, The Dark Knight Rises deals with a number of themes: fear, sacrifice, trust, identity, and social redemption. While it does deal with several themes, they are not necessarily cohesive. This ambition is admirable, but at times makes the movie feel overstuffed. So while each movie seemed to focus on different central themes, both of them failed in certain aspects, leaving it up to the audience to choose which finale they believed had a greater impact. And so we find ourselves at the crossroads of two unforgettable finales, one a sprawling spectacle of unity and fanfare, the other a deeply personal journey of redemption. Both leave their mark in unique ways, but which resonates more with you? If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the movies we love. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.